Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining. This is PowerHug's June session. If you are joining us today for the first time, welcome and thank you for joining. If you're a repeat visitor, we're happy to see you again. My name is Scott Dwyer. I'm an AI Business Process Solution Engineer here at Microsoft, which means I focus on the Power Platform, inclusive of Copilot Studio, which is going to be our focus today. And I help our customers realize the value of AI in their business processes. Randall Eichema, my colleague, is here as well. This group is the Healthcare User Group. We are a community of Power Platform admins, makers, users, and our goal here is to promote just education of the platform from among the community, so our customers to other customers, as well as from Microsoft to the community, which will be the focus today. We present roughly the fourth Thursday of each month. We have some flexibility on that when we need to accommodate schedules, but we try to be here for you as a kind of a lunch and learn on that fourth Thursday of every month. We have a few different forums that we'd love to see you on, primarily LinkedIn. We have a group there. We use it to promote our events. We're also would welcome any questions or stories folks have to participate more fully in that forum. We have a YouTube channel. All of our recordings go up at Power Platform Hug after the fact. And we always need and are welcome to support other presenters. So we love to have customers speaking with other customers on these when possible. If that's something that would interest you, I would love for you to reach out to Randall, to myself, to your specialists on the forum, on LinkedIn, however you prefer. Topics, I don't want to limit you with that list, but just some ideas. We've had folks telling their governance journey, their adoption journey. We've covered specific use cases that delivered on a particular tricky problem or delivered ROI. We've talked about citizen development programs, strategy, alignment, any lesson learned. There is a great value we find in our customers hearing directly from their peers, especially inside of this unique healthcare ecosystem that we just try to bring to the forefront and promote here. A couple upcoming events. We'll have another one of our colleagues, Abhijit Prem Kumar, coming next month for July's Power Hug. He has built a nurse huddle board with using AI and using some automation with AI inside of it. That is really, really slick and really neat, and I hope applicable to some folks on this call and some other folks in the healthcare industry. So if you have not already, you can register with that link there. We'll also be posting on LinkedIn about that for the registration to come up. So make sure you don't miss that one, especially if you're involved in nursing in any way, shape, or form. One other event, and this was, if I can get my slides to advance, this was where we were born. So at the Power Platform Conference coming up in Las Vegas. It says October 27th to 29th. That doesn't feel necessarily imminent, but I can promise you, at least in my world, it's going to feel like it sneaks up on us. If you're interested in attending, you can use that link to register. If you are a Microsoft customer, we do sponsor some of our customers with passes. That can be a way to offset some of the cost. You can talk to your specialist about that to see if that's an option. We would love to see you there. It's our goal this year to bring 10,000 people to that conference. I think we were up to, I want to say we hit about 8,000 last year. And if you're there for reasons beyond learning about the Power Platform, I believe Pitbull is our musical guest this year. So Pitbull fans, make sure you register, if for no other reason than to see a nice little hour with Pitbull. And if there's any questions on that, feel free to reach out to us as well. We help people navigate it and kind of figure out and get their days in order. So Randall and I are your sole speakers today. So we hope you're not sick of us here. Our topic is going to be the new Copilot Studio UI. So our intros are done. The new UI, if you haven't heard of this, is a very, very, I think, exciting pivot that we're going to see to Copilot Studio. So we wanted to get ahead of it. It is currently public preview. You may have seen it. It was released to GA, and then we had to pull it back because it wasn't quite ready yet, but it's going to see improvements very quickly in the coming weeks and months. So you'll hear from both of us today. I wanted to just start with what hasn't changed, right? This is maybe going to feel brand new to a lot of folks. We're still grounded in this as our source of truth, right? Microsoft Copilot is our UI for AI. We use our tools like Copilot Studio and Foundry to orchestrate across a variety of different agents, from first-party Microsoft agents, custom agents that you build, and even third-party agents from what might look like on paper some of Microsoft's competitors. The underlying mechanism, the Copilot control system, comes through Agent 365 and the Power Platform Admin Center. That's where we derive our security, our governance, our management, and our measurement. So all of these things remain the same. This is the Microsoft value proposition when it comes to AI. We are multi-model, we are multimodal. So we're trying to bring the best of all the AI tools to you in a way that your IT organization can feel comfortable with. What has also not changed? Copilot Studio's general anatomy. We still have our foundation models. You'll see similar model choice that you've seen in Copilot Studio previously. It's not thousands of models like in Foundry. It is maybe approaching 10 models. I usually say it's like the current model for Claude or OpenAI, kind of -1. We're a fast follower. Our orchestrator is what's brand new. Our orchestrator is much more powerful. It's based more on some of the Anthropic models, and we've seen the performance improve a great deal with simple tasks and with some of our more complex tasks. One of the ways that I talk about the new UI or the new orchestrator is that it not only works a little bit better than the previous orchestrator, but it also is a little bit easier to set things up than the previous orchestrator, which I consider kind of a win-win that is rare in technology. You're still orchestrating across knowledge, grounding your agent in certain knowledge sources, and tools, a variety of different tools. Some of the tools are new to the scene, some are familiar, connectors, MCP servers. We're also seeing skills brought into this. That's probably the biggest new tool in your tool belt as you build in the new orchestrator. The user experience, the channels, similar there. We're going to be multimodal. We're going to be able to deploy across a variety of different channels. If you do play with the new UI, one of the things you'll notice is there might be a little bit fewer channels, a little bit fewer knowledge sources. That's one of the reasons this remains public preview, right? We will quickly strive to get to parity, but it may feel just slightly different for now. So just be mindful of that. And if you haven't seen the new UI yet, you can try copilotstudio.preview.microsoft.com, and it should be able to launch for you. You can always opt to go back to the other one. You're going to get a feedback page, which I encourage you to fill out if there's something you find not in the new UI. That really helps us at Microsoft. So why did this come about? So if you've been using Copilot Studio, the product team has told the story of Project Dracarys. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, you know what that means. If you're not a Game of Thrones fan, it's how they make the dragons breathe fire. So we had this situation where we continued to get feedback that we were not able to engineer around. I kind of described this as we'd somewhat engineered ourselves into a corner because we had a tool called Power Virtual Agents. We built on top of Power Virtual Agents. We had the idea of topics and trigger phrases. It was very powerful, very capable, but it led to limitations that we didn't necessarily plan for as AI evolved, which happened very quickly. We continue to get similar feedback from a variety of different customers. It's not quite doing what we'd like. It's not quite what we expected. It's not quite as kind of easy and magic as some of these other AI tools that we're using, maybe for personal use or even from some of our competitors. That's why this name Dracarys came about. Our product team decided to take a step back, basically rebuild from the ground up, leave the legacy orchestrator as it was, so it's not going anywhere anytime soon, but they needed to rethink things to start to deliver and meet these customer expectations. So we now have in early June, a brand new orchestrator, a brand new user interface that shipped extremely quickly, and I expect to continue to transform and grow very quickly. That will hopefully achieve parity very soon with the old orchestrator. And I assure you, even today, some of the demos you're going to see can already exceed on some simple tasks the expectations you had with the old orchestrator, not only in the quality of the responses, but in how easy it is to get some of these things done. So with that, I'll have Randall introduce you to the new Copilot Studio and kind of some of what makes it new and improved.
All right. So I think, Scott, you covered off on quite a bit of this on the slide here in terms of really looking at a whole new orchestration engine, really looking at how we recognize, react, think about, and then ultimately loop that conversation around to get better results, reducing hallucinations and so forth. And we'll cover that here in a second as well. And then the agent building interface, it's drastically changed. You're going to see immediate difference. You're going to maybe be confused by it at first, but then I think as you dive in, you're going to see that, hey, we're really focusing around our instructions, our tools, our skills, and just making it all around easier for you to navigate and create agents. And I think in a much shorter time frame. So what I felt was at times easy to do in Copilot Studio, I think is even easier. And what was hard to do in Copilot Studio before is now easy. At least I've discovered it to be in most scenarios. To Scott's point, we're still bringing things into the interface, into the tooling that to put it on par with some of the capabilities that we had in the classic Copilot Studio, is what we're calling it now, classic Copilot Studio. But it's all getting there over the weeks, and hopefully here in the next couple of weeks, we'll be fully there. And then Workflow Designer, think of this in terms of agent flows. They're now a new version of that called Workflows. One of the things that you won't see in the new design is triggers. So Workflow Designer is really your way to create autonomous agents. And we're going to dive into that here in a little bit as well. But really a totally different designer, again, bringing in some capabilities from other tool sets that maybe you're familiar with, as well as bringing in new capabilities in terms of being able to call different agents and how you go about calling those agents. And we'll dive into that. Go ahead, Scott. So really, this is about the new experience in the orchestration engine. It's really a cyclical process where we think and we analyze and plan around your intent. And then we usually take an act or a step on that. And that's going to be usually based around your tools, right? So what tools do you have? What skills do you have available? And it's going to use those to its best ability. And then it's going to observe the results. And it's going to reflect on those results. And did I answer what was intended? Did I get to the correct conclusion? Or do I need to maybe rethink and analyze based on the results I got and look at other tools or things that I need to evaluate? And it's going to continue to do that loop until it determines that, hey, this is what I think actually should be the answer, and respond to you or ask additional questions and then continue that loop over and over. Whereas before it was you ask a question, it generates a response, it feeds you that response. So it executed a plan up front and then did that plan and didn't really have an opportunity to evaluate and rethink that plan. This time it's going to go through, or I should say from now on, it's going to go through and look at the plan, reevaluate the plan, and continue to cycle through until it comes up with a best response for you, and then continue to ask follow-up questions and continue on from there. Go ahead, Scott. So part of the interface you'll see is a simplified UX. There's no confusing overview tab with multiple sections and then many tabs across the top to try to navigate to your knowledge, your tools, and so forth. It's simply based around your instructions right off the bat. There is a small window in the right-hand corner, which will share my screen here in a little while, and we'll kind of go through what all those are. And it's really around intent-led creation, right? So how are we writing those instructions so the agent knows exactly what to do each and every time, and then bringing in special capabilities through our tools or skills. And then obviously being able to access and see what those instructions are and skills are a little bit easier, right? So rather than trying to navigate to different sections and seeing exactly what might be happening, we give you that visibility and transparency right off the bat. All right, next slide.
Thank you, Randall. I think I'm taking back over here. So we talked about the new workflow designer. Hopefully a simple configuration to kind of drag and drop experience. Should feel a bit like Cloudflow's with some enhancements, both for preference as well as ease of use, and a little bit of a flattening of some of the capabilities. So being able to call agent-to-agent scenarios instead of having to use AI prompts, and hopefully a bit of a simplification for kind of autonomous scenarios where we're using scheduled or other triggers inside of the system. We'll show you what this looks like and give you kind of a tour of the UI to make sure this drives home and makes sense. But be rest assured that if you've been using agent flows or even Power Automate Cloud flows, this will very likely come rather easily to you, and hopefully in time become a preferred way to build things, because we have heard a lot of feedback from over the years about both those products, agent flows and cloud flows. Personal favorite of mine here, we'll have a demo or two to show this, but working with files. I really focus in on the more capable agents when it comes to working with files. if you've ever had to do something like fill out a Word document or a Excel template, something of that nature with the old Copilot Studio, or I'm sorry, the classic orchestrator, it was possible to do. It could feel pretty tedious. You had to ask each input one at a time. You had to place it in a very specific spot as a dynamic value. We've now given the orchestrator the ability to simply have a template in its knowledge source and your instructions on how to interact with that template, and it can intelligently fill that out, generate a really clean document, and get you off and running in a way that used to be not only kind of fixed process. It always felt limiting, but it was also very tedious. So again, it was kind of a lose-lose, and now it feels like a little bit of a win-win. And that's in addition to some an increased size processing and some better reasoning over things like SharePoint sources. But the template capabilities are what has me like really, really excited. And I've already had use cases with customers that I've been able to tackle with the new orchestrator that we were stuck on in the old orchestrator for some time. And you'll see a great example of one of those from Randall today. And then skills, reusable skills, authoring skills. If you've played with, Claude tools, Cowork tools, these MD files as skills have quickly become a kind of prerequisite to playing in the AI game. And these are a great way to not only give your agent kind of discrete capabilities, but also to expand the context window if you've run into instruction limits at 8,000 characters. These are another great way to offload some of that processing to a specific and discrete skill and sort of only use it on an as-needed basis. So I'll show you a couple of these today in some demos. And with that, we'll stop with the overflow of slides here, and we'll have Randall run through a handful of demos that he's built out with the new orchestrator, and then I'll show a handful that I've got as well.
All right, I'm going to take over the screen here. I'm also going to put a link here in a second about skills. Scott, you see that screen okay?
Yes, I do.
All right, so we're going to walk through just some examples, but primarily I wanted to introduce the new interface, kind of walk you through the new interface, what that looks like, where you find certain things, where you don't find certain things, or where things are missing altogether. And then ultimately we'll kind of run through just some brief tests of the agent and see what it looks like. And in this case, we have an innovation agent. Think of it in terms of helping organizations classify innovation no matter where it occurs. So rather than Teams messages or emails or conversations in the hall, this agent is really there to help an organization catalog that innovation as either an idea or a problem, and then basically guide it through the process internally in terms of either solving that problem or addressing that idea and making it come to life. And so right off the bat, you'll see right in the middle of the screen, we have our instructions. And what's interesting here is there's no other sections. So in the classic interface, we had tools, we had actions, we had instructions, we had the model, we had the description, we had the name, we had all this other stuff in the overview tab, followed by a bunch of tabs across the top. Really now on your main build tab here, you have your agent name, the image that you can modify, as well as your instructions. And what's interesting about the instructions is, I think you might have heard from Scott a moment ago saying a restricted 8,000 characters. In this interface, I believe the maximum is now 30,000 characters. So you have a much larger space for your instructions to build those out. And then across the right, you'll see another panel here, which is really all about how we bring in that knowledge, those tools, those skills, even add memory or turn on memory within our agent, as well as select our different models. So right at the top, I have the ability to select my different models. What happens in your environment might be different than what I'm showing here in terms of certain things might be blocked for you, right? So depending on whether your organization has turned on preview capabilities or maybe disabled or not enabled Claude models yet, you might not see all these models. But the point here being, we do expose more and more models to you in either preview or experimental states, as well as GA states. And the key thing is, depending on the policies within your organization, you may or may not see those. And one of the things that we're trying to do with these releases is bring these the models to market faster, so that you can use them in your agents in an earlier time frame. Rolling on down, we have our IQ capabilities. So bringing in those capabilities like Work IQ, Foundry IQ, Fabric IQ, and I think now we'll have Web IQ as well. Right now, you can see in this interface, we're still coming forth with some of that capability. I can only see Foundry IQ right now. I can't see Work IQ and the others, but they are coming, and we'll be able to add those into your agents as well. Skills. So this is the big one that Scott hit on. What you're not seeing in this interface is the ability to add in topics. So I don't have a tab to go to topics and create that declarative flow. I'm really going to use skills to do that now, where I will provide instructions on exactly what it should do and how it should do it in that skill set, and then ultimately use that in the context of my agent and have AI deploy that skill or use that skill when and where possible. The other thing that you'll see is you don't see, I should say, what you don't see is child agents. So I can add my connected agents here at the bottom. I don't have the ability to create a sub agent or a child agent and add that into my agent. That's also been kind of replaced with skills as well. So again, skills are that set of discrete functionality for your agents. And I'll put a little link here in the chat, but it's really all about modular on-demand expertise for your agents. So instead of necessarily putting all your instructions, your procedures, and business logic into a large prompt, skills allow that agent to load specialized guidance only when it's needed. So think of it as knowledge really tells what the agent to do. Tools tell an agent what it can do. Skills tell an agent how to apply that knowledge and those tools correctly in a specific situation. And then to break it down even further, instructions are always on, right? They're always there for your agent during every intent or question or prompt. And skills are more about situational expertise. So in this particular situation, use this skill, and this other situation, use this skill. But you use that in conjunction with your instructions, your knowledge, and your tool set. So in the interface, you'll see skills here. I have a couple of defined: intake problem and intake idea. I want to handle those capabilities different. So I have the names, the descriptions, the instructions for that skill set. It should be acknowledged that this is based on the standard for skills, agent AI skills that I think actually Anthropic came out with, right? So we're not developing something new or new format or new standard. This is something we're, again, borrowing and using along with other AI vendors to deploy skill sets within AI tools. So if you create a skill elsewhere, you can more than likely bring it into Copilot Studio as a skill.md file and use it inside your own custom agent as well. So if I were to add a new skill, I can come in, I can upload a skill. And what's nice here is you'll notice file requirements at the bottom. It either needs to be a skill.md or a zip file. Well, that's interesting. A zip file, what does that mean? Well, skills have the ability to bring in scripts as well as other resources that are specific to that skill set. So if you need to bring in certain knowledge sets or scripts to run within that skill or for that skill, you can bring those as additional resources inside of that zip file. So the zip file basically has your skill.md file and then directories underneath there for scripts and resources and other items that you can add in. And again, it's all part of the common standard for that, and will basically prompt you if it's not in the right format. But you can drag and drop those into the upload and bring those in, kind of like what I have here, or my skill MD file. Or I can actually create from blank. So now I can define that skill, describe it, as well as its instructions down below, and create a skill on the fly in the dialog. And I'll actually show you where I have that skill brought in on another agent, but where it brings in those additional resources. And then below we have our tools where, again, this looks kind of familiar in terms of all our connectors. You have your ability to bring in your standard connectors as well as your MCP capabilities. You'll see those still flagged as preview in case of our Work IQ and so forth. But any standard or GA MCP servers are there as well as you have the ability to bring in your own custom MCP server to the equation. We have our connectors. I think one of the things that we're continuing to work on or evolve is the ability to maybe gray out some of these or have a way to indicate these are blocked by a DLP policy. But that's something that's also being worked on to help in the interface and creating agents. And then lastly, we have the ability to bring in workflows as well from the environments once they publish and become available, as well as if they have got that trigger to be called from an agent, you can bring those in and use those as a tool. Knowledge sources, this is very much the same. I have my public websites. I have maybe my my Copilot knowledge sources as well, or Copilot connectors, where I can bring in, say, like ServiceNow knowledge and tickets into Graph, and then use that as knowledge inside my agent. But one thing you might notice that's a little bit different here is I don't have the synchronization capability with OneDrive and SharePoint with Dataverse. The whole purpose behind that was really to use a different indexing engine in Dataverse. We've kind of simplified that and said, hey, in this new orchestration engine, we don't feel that's necessary any longer. Let's just go straight to SharePoint or OneDrive and bring those knowledge sources in. And based on the drastic improvements we made in the orchestration engine and how we handle intent and requests and so forth, we don't feel that synchronization with Dataverse is needed. Connected agents, much the same here as well. One thing I'm waiting to see, and I don't know if Scott, if you have any insight into this, but obviously to bring in Fabric Data agents, A to A agents, agent toolkit agents, any of those sort of things that you see in the classic interface are not here quite yet. What I'm not clear on is if we're going to see that in just straight up workflows. So in other words, I'm going to call a workflow and that workflow is going to call those agents, or if I'm going to be able to bring those agents in natively directly here in the connected agent space. I suspect it's going to be here, but I haven't seen it yet.
There's also a chance it would come into the IQs as a Foundry, or excuse me, a Fabric IQ as well. So that, I think, tentatively remains to be seen for the moment.
Thank you. And then lastly, we have memory. So one of the things that we never had in the classic interface is the ability to retain conversations and responses and interactions in our agents. And now we can actually start bringing that into memory, refer to that memory within the agent as well, and use them in the context of the conversation. Across the top, we have the ability to switch from our build tab to our preview tab. Preview is really your test pane. So in the classic interface, you had a flyout pane from the right. Well, now you have the entire window, so you can actually navigate and understand what it's doing in the full context of the window. What's nice here is I can start going in and let's take a look at an example. Once I start adding my prompts, what we didn't have before is necessarily a chain of thought. You could actually add some topics to add in a chain of thought in the classic interface, but now it's kind of built in, right? So now as a developer, I can actually see it working through the scenario, what tools it's going to evaluate, what information it's going to return based on those tools and knowledge sources, and then start asking me questions back. This can be turned off by end user preview. If I turn that on, it will basically remove any developer chain of thought messages, and you won't see those. So the end users won't always see that chain of thought. And let's do another quick response here, and you kind of see it kind of go through a little bit more, thinking through what it's going to do. And then let's just see, give it one more response and we'll kind of move on. So the whole idea here is we actually are trying to collect the idea or the problem and get clarifying answers so that when we submit it to our backend system, we have all the necessary information where we can actually start adding it to our database. In our scenario, we actually had a tool in there for MCP server, Dataverse MCP server, where we can control what actions in Dataverse it's actually going to be able to perform. So adding new tables, creating or deleting tables, adding new records. You can choose what you want to do there, and I would encourage you to remove those delete capabilities. Like, hey, I don't want to delete records. I don't want to delete tables for sure. But Dataverse MCP has a way to handle all that where you don't have to write all those individual skills or capabilities. You add the MCP server and start interacting, and it will start going ahead with it. So what it's basically done now is summarize that item, and then provides just a question, hey, does this look good? And do you want to change anything before I submit it? Just confirmation again. So I'll go through and submit. But what you saw during that process is it went through different things where I can dive in and understand exactly what it was evaluating, what it was working through, what skills it was using, knowledge it was using. I believe in one scenario through here, we'll see if it actually dives in, but I can see exactly the query it's using. if it's got to pull in a skill like, hey, I need to navigate a PDF, I need to bring in that PDF skill, it's going to show you what it's doing there, as well as if I'm creating documents, and I think maybe Scott's going to show this in a little bit too, where if I need to create a Word document, it's going to pull in that skill natively. I didn't have to add it. It's just there as part of the new orchestration engine and LLM behind the scenes. So it's going through and navigating what that looks like. In this case, it's just making sure there's no duplicates, and then it's going to go ahead and create that record. So while that's working, across the top, you'll also see additional capabilities. So we still have our evaluation engine where I can run evaluation sets against my agent. Is it doing what I expect it to do based on the various prompts? And then ultimately pass or fail, and then I can go back and adjust my agent, as well as I can go ahead and monitor my agent based on activity that occurs with that agent over a given period of time. So we'll let that run. I'll see if I go back into evaluation sets, you kind of see what that looks like. Again, I have the whole window here. Same capabilities. I think the only thing I've really noticed here is the test method is really only general quality. So bringing in your own grading sets or test sets. You can bring in your own test sets, but the own test methods or grading methods are not there, as well as the other ways to test that you see in the classic interface are not quite there yet as well. And then monitoring, similar reporting capabilities. You can calculate savings by your agent, as well as get an overview of the interactions with the agent over time, as well as capabilities, the tools that are used, the knowledge sources that are used. If you have feedback and reactions, you'll get that information here as well. All right, so quick take a look here. Then we're just going to do in the cluster. So what it's trying to do is group ideas and then ultimately pass it back into the backend system. So it found some matches because I've done this demo before, or obviously went through and tested it. And it's going to go ahead and create that in the backend system. And why that's important is just because we created a quick model-driven app off of Dataverse where we can manage these innovations and ideas and problems and continue them through our process. So that's a quick run through of what the interface looks like. I think the other thing I wanted to quick highlight was just an example of how we can use an agent inside of a workflow, as well as skills. If we dive into this skill set here, in this case, I actually have a health plan selector where it's going through and users are coming and say, hey, I want to upgrade my plan, or I'm evaluating a gold plan versus the platinum plan, or want to upgrade from silver to platinum. But what it doesn't handle are certain questions like billing conflicts, or explanation of benefits, claims, disputes, that sort of thing. And so this skill was brought in to help try to answer anything that can't be answered by our plan documents and our comparison documents. And it goes through and basically says, hey, this is how you're going to use this skill. This is where you're going to use it. You're not going to use it for everything, but this is in these given scenarios you are. And oh, by the way, here's some more information for answering those other capabilities. So if someone wants to have or has a claim dispute, it can go through that and process that. And so with that health plan selector, I can either put that on my website and start using that, facing my members, or maybe I want to use that through a workflow. And in this case, I set up an autonomous agent where all I have is an incoming email to a specific mailbox. And then based on that incoming email, I'm trying to interpret the intent of that email and using the classify action. That classify action is determining whether this is actually an inquiry about a plan or changing plans, or maybe it's an inquiry to a specific broker or person that handles my plans, and I want to talk to them directly. It's going to classify and handle it differently. One route I'm going to go through, and I'm actually going to call my agent. So in this case, I can actually choose the agent I want to handle that intent, whether it's that one or some other one in my environment, as well as pass in the body of that email, and then specify the type of response I want. And in this case, all I'm doing is I'm getting the response and I'm sending it back to the person who sent the request via email. And then the other scenario, if it's a direct request, I'm forwarding it directly to that broker, that person to handle that request, so that they can take it from there instead of trying to answer it myself. With that, I think this is a great segue to you, Scott, to talk about workflows.
Thank you, sir. Let me just get my screens oriented. And Randall, do you have my screen?
I do. Looks good.
All right. Lovely. So I've got a pre-built workflow here, pretty simple one in this case, but I wanted to kind of demonstrate some of the capabilities and obviously flash the left to right versus top down build if you so choose to organize this way. Still have the same dock on the left-hand side. In this case, I've used a trigger for when an email arrives, have a drop down to select several triggers from connectors and schedules HTTP requests. And then this is where it gets a little bit unique, right? I'm taking an attachment from that email. In this case, there's a recall PDF, a recall notice being passed over, and I'm processing the attachment content for recall information via an agent called Recall Manager. So if you've used a Cloudflow or an agent flow in the past, you might have been trying to parse this attachment and send it to an AI prompt. AI prompts were great, do not get me wrong, they're a fantastic tool, but now I can pass it to a full-blown agent, and then I can have follow-on tasks, in this case, notification of the email and sending of a link to an application that we've built to manage our recalls, where our inventory is stored. So I pre-ran this just because it can take a few minutes to run here. So you can see what it looks like once I've actually run. New email arrives, it's tracking how long it takes, agent run taking a little bit of time first and foremost, but getting the green checks throughout. And then we can look at what the agent looks like when it runs. Excuse me, sorry. Sorry, I just have the agent to what it's doing first. So pretty simple instructions. You're going to receive the input PDF. I want you to parse the product, the reason, the remediation task. I have a skill here that explains the data model of my inventory management system to make sure that it can understand the context whenever it needs to. And then we'll write the Dataverse record to create the recall event and create a couple of recall tasks. We could have it reason over the inspection process. In this case, I just gave it kind of specific instructions to inspect and to pull the contaminated or otherwise compromised inventory. The tools that it has here is really primarily the Dataverse MCP server. If you haven't played with the Dataverse MCP server, it has a tremendous capability to understand how to work with Dataverse data, as well as how to go and create records, update records in a way that is just so much more simple than working with connectors, where we had to often parse and provide GUIDs and things of that nature. So if we look at the run here history, when I dropped in a PDF for it, it analyzes the skill, it kind of reasons through things, it parses the information it needs, and then it gives me the summary of the recall notice, for this case, amoxicillin capsules, the recall event that it created inside of Dataverse along with some of the tasks, and kind of gives you the citations of the data that you used along the way. What this looks like inside of our application now, right? We have our amoxicillin lot contamination recall event. It's tied into remediation tasks, and those remediation tasks tie back to a lot and a location that are also something we can navigate to, so we can start to see remediation tasks by lot or by product. If you ever worked with a Dataverse connector, something as simple as populating a single lookup field to bring a relationship into the context of that connector could become a headache. Now we have not only a one-to-many relationship, but really a many-to-many relationship or several one-to-many relationships that just the MCP server is able to comprehend, understand, and write data to from an agent that really took, a few minutes of the build and a little bit of tinkering with a workflow to figure out passing the attachment. This really was something I don't even know that I would have started to tinker with inside of just the classic interface, or I may have taken an entirely different approach if I was going to do so. And now it became relatively quick and easy inside of this new interface. Next one I've got here for you is a integration with Salesforce. So in this case, we have a Salesforce MCP server. I'm going to click send this. So I just met with the University of Arizona about their install opportunity, create a task drawing. We call them about reference customers. I'm going to send that through and then I'll kind of explain what's happening here. So the Salesforce MCP server inside of Power Platform is really powerful, really useful. But if you look at its actions, it doesn't have the capabilities to create very many records inside of Salesforce. In fact, it can only create cases, oddly enough. However, we have a connector that can create a record. So in this case, what I've done is I've given the agent both of those tools, and I have instructed it to, when the user prompts it, fill in the data that it doesn't have, or use the data that is provided by the user and the MCP server to populate what the connector needs. So it understands, okay, University of Arizona, I need to go look up the University of Arizona and get this unique identifier so that I can map it to the connector because the connector needs a unique identifier. This is a key challenge I've seen with a lot of my customers where, it's the connector's naturally going to ask, all right, what account do you want? And it would be natural for somebody to think University of Arizona is the account or University of Arizona Installations is the opportunity. But our connectors always want that unique identifier. Not to say that we couldn't go get it, we couldn't comb through it, but it was a multi-step agent flow in that kind of old world. And now it's, again, doing more and doing it more simply. I'll just pass this one more prompt that I had ready here. So move the Microsoft Accounts Dynamics 365 modernization up to perception analysis stage. So the use case here was a customer who had mobile sellers out in the field and they wanted to actually use voice to text. So we actually got this agent working via a mobile application where you can use your device's microphone to speak these voice notes into existence. And you can actually write your updates directly to Salesforce in real time without losing context, without having to open your CRM. They were literally taking voice notes on their native device and then re-listening back to those once they got back to their desk and manually entering the information. So you can imagine how much of just a time saver this particular use case is just by combining a couple of tools. And I've got one last one, my personal favorite, because it was a use case I was stuck on for quite some time. And the day that I got access to the new interface, it was the first one I tried, and it was almost immediately successful. So orienting you with this one, I've got some marketing documentation that outlines what a marketing brief should look like. It has my template information. It has some best practices. It has an example of what good looks like. And then I have some simple instructions. So you should collect the name, product, and idea. You have some additional questions to ask one at a time, and then identify some tactics. So this was one of the areas we struggled in the classic orchestrator. They wanted to have the agent come to the user, ask a few questions, then go back to its knowledge, collect some tactics, recommend some tactics, take some user feedback, go back to its knowledge, generate a template, and kind of combine, and at every step of the way, combine what the user was giving them, what the knowledge was giving them, and what the template was giving them. And I kept having to explain to the customer that with our Word templates the old way, we always had to deterministically define every input and gather it from the chat. That is no longer the case with this reasoning engine. So let's go have a look at this one, and I'll kind of talk through it as we go. So I want to create a brief. A couple of the cool things that this does along the way, you'll see first, it already knows my name. I told it to collect the name, but it knows I'm Scott because I'm using my Entra authentication. So it understands, all right, this is a brief from Scott. Let's just keep going. What product am I creating this brief for? We'll say this is for Medicare enrollment. All right, great, wonderful topic. What's the big idea for this campaign? What are we trying to promote? I want to increase Medicare enrollments. 20 cents. Targeted market date, we'll say we're trying to get this out by September 1. And you can see with just some simple instructions, it's not only asking me these questions, but I really like that it explains itself very well when it asks a question. What's your primary business goal? For example, are you aiming for a specific number of new enrollments? It's not just asking a static question, it's giving the user some context to say, this is the type of input I might be looking for. So we'll say we want to increase enrollment by 10%. All right, I've got a summary of what we're trying to do. Let me go and try to find some tactics for your campaign. This is where it's going back to that knowledge source, and it's aggregating what I've provided as inputs that were a little bit more deterministic. Kind of felt like a topic used to feel, but I just natural language asked it to do it. And now it's going and analyzing some of those best practice documents to recommend some tactics that might work for a good Medicare enrollment campaign. And then once it returns these, I'm going to have the opportunity to choose from among them. I've run this demo quite a few times. You can say, give me 1, 2, and 3, cut out 5 and 6, only, social media. It's very capable at mapping your natural language input to the specifics of the recommended tactics that you are, opting into in this case. So let's go everything but direct mail. So ideally, it's going to include 1 through 4 in this case. Another neat thing that I found this did, again, without really any prompting, it just kind of did it, was once I start to select my tactics, it doesn't do this every time, so I hope I don't have that guy on my face here, but it will do some form of recommended allocation of my budget. And in a lot of the test runs, it even actually leaves me a bit of discretionary budget. So if I think I said 35,000 was my budget, it might leave me $5,000 of discretionary budget in case something like, social media spend can be unpredictable, advertising spend can be unpredictable. So maybe we get a spike in engagement and we actually overspend slightly on a social ad or a search ad, and we need to have that discretionary bucket there. And again, these are things that we could very much explicitly call out. We can instruct it to do, but with just the very limited instructions you saw that I provided it started to do some of these things that I found to be very intuitive and very helpful, suggesting answers, auto allocating budget, and then even the intelligence to kind of prepare for the worst and know the realities. Like the language model kind of knows the realities of how some of these different marketing options work. And I think or I like to think at least that's why I built in some of that variance. We're at the point of creating the document. So here we go. Summary of, there we go. This time it left a little to the side for production and creative. Okay, that's fine. I'm okay with that. So no discretionary spend. And this isn't set in stone, right? The whole idea here was now I will open up my Medicare enrollment. And I can make some edits to this, and if I need to. So we've got my high-level overview information, my budget, my target date, my overview projects. It's elaborated a little bit, and you can imagine the previous version of this process was, maybe somebody filled out half of this sheet. Maybe somebody filled out a couple of fields. Maybe they even just sent an email. And the team I was dealing with that was responsible for putting these briefs together ended up spending a lot of time chasing people for additional information, for additional context. Hey, here's some tactics you can choose from. Do you want to pick 1, 2, or 3? And then a follow-up email to say, hey, I'm still waiting on those tactics. And the process just became incredibly tedious and manual. And it slowed things down to the point where every deadline or go-to-market date kind of became a bit of a fire drill. So we're hoping that by automating the creation of these briefs with an agent that kind of enforces what good looks like and what a best practice is, we cut out a great deal of that back and forth, and we take the time from idea to a completed brief ready for their campaign down significantly in time. So I'll pause there. I don't know if we had any questions, or I can bring back up our.
Yeah, Scott, I'm going to go through a couple here. Just I answered them in chat, but a couple things I want to highlight, and I'm going to share my screen again if that's okay.
Sure.
We'll go real quick. So a couple things. One, if you're looking at the new interface or you're experimenting with it at the preview URL, there is no direct method from classic to new. It is a rewrite. There is no way to say, okay, import this classic agent into the new interface. There's not to say there won't be something in the future, but right now I haven't seen any roadmap items indicating there's going to be a tool to do that migration. And the other thing I'll say is when you're in here and you're experimenting, please provide feedback. They provided a quick, easy way to do it. Top right corner, give a compliment, report a problem, make a suggestion. So if there's things that are missing from the classic that you want to see still in the new, provide that feedback. As well as in the workflow engine, where did I find it? The feedback mechanism is still there underneath the 3 dots, and I can send that same sort of feedback. A couple call outs in this interface too that we kind of glossed over just by showing what we had, and that is M365 Copilot So if you want to call Copilot, or if you want to call maybe some of your declarative agents that you've created in Copilot, you can go ahead and do that, right? So now I can take advantage of analyst, I can take advantage of researcher, I can take care of Excel or Word or even co-work directly from my workflow. So big step here in terms of what you can do from these workflows, as well as obviously that agent interface. We talked about it briefly, where you use agents instead of prompts at this point, but you don't have to use a predefined agent. So you have the ability to create an inline agent. Think of it in terms of a prompt, where you provide instructions, you add in your tools and so forth, and then ultimately provide your outputs from that agent. One thing you'll notice here too is there's not a document output, right? There's structured formats that you can output. We're really relying on the agent and the new orchestration engine and the LLM behind it to drive those document formats, like you just saw with Scott, where it's creating that stuff really well on the fly that we don't need to have maybe what we had before in terms of code interpreter and a specific document output type. So just be cognizant of those things. And again, send that feedback. It's in preview, so we want to hear it as much as we can. And they are pushing to get this out as quickly as possible. So yeah, please use it and please provide that feedback. Sorry, Scott, you can take it back.
All good. Good stuff. I especially love the calling out the different agents, because I know I've had folks wanting to call particularly researcher and analyst from a Copilot Studio agent for what feels like a year. So I can't believe I forgot to mention that one. And then let me just jump to, sorry if you're hearing music again. A closing. So a huge thank you to everybody that took some time with us today. We'll be back next month. Hopefully everybody has a great 4th of July, get some time to rest, recharge, and get ready for the new year of AI transformation, or at least the new Microsoft year. I guess I'm trained to think of the year end as July 1. We'd love to hear from you if you have feedback, if you'd like to present sometime, any and everything. Otherwise, we'll be back on July 23rd. The registration link should be earlier in the chat. We can, or excuse me, earlier in the presentation. We can also drop it in the chat one more time. And just a huge thank you for taking some time with us today. We're really excited about this new orchestrator. We hope that you are as well. I'll plug it one more time because I know it means so much more coming from you than it does from Randall or I, but use that feedback, get it to our product team. Like, they are, trust me, like incredibly bright, brilliant people that are eager to please. But sometimes they don't know what they don't know. And it means a ton coming from you all to say, hey, I used to do this in the old orchestrator, the classic orchestrator. Golly, I got to get a buzzer. It really is something they take very seriously. And that's how things get into the roadmap. That's how they kind of plan their forecasts. So thank you again for the time. We're very excited to have you today. We'll be back next month, and we're have a bunch of old sessions on YouTube if anybody's interested.